Hello and welcome to Shannon Gardens. Thank you guys so much for joining me. So today I am so excited because I am going to my local Pike Nurseries and I'm actually going for a couple of reasons. First, I am taking a beginner's class in indoor plants and just learning some basics and going over some different things that I should bear in mind when I am planting indoors. And so I'll make sure to take notes and pass some of that on to you guys as well. And I also, conveniently enough, am also looking for an indoor plant. So I will take you guys to kind of show what they've got currently and some interesting plants that they have out there. All right, so I'm so excited. Let's get going. All right, you guys, I am looking at some different plant options, and we have a golden pathos here, which is beautiful, that bright leaf, and that's a lower light plant. And then they have the variegated leaf as well in the same plant, and then the standard green leaf. We have the aglaonema, which is a low to medium light plant with variegated leaves. They also have snake plants, low to medium light plants, and these grow 1 to 3 feet tall and wide and have upright growth. Oh, look at this one. Is this a snake plant too? I think it is. It's just a different type of leaf than these. That's pretty interesting. I do not think I've ever seen this plant before. It's called a goldfish plant. I'll pull that down and show you guys and read a little bit about it, but that's really a pretty looking plant. Okay, you guys, look at this plant. These little flowers are so cute. And let me show you the formal name. So, goldfish plant. I'm not going to even attempt to pronounce that name, but it does say that it prefers bright light. That is a very, very pretty plant. I'm not sure that I have a space for it, but it's very pretty. If I did, I would get it. Now, this plant is one that I did learn about in class, and evidently it's a pretty easy plant. It is medium to low light, and it's a bird's nest fern. So they said that that's an easier fern to keep. I've always loved ferns, and if you can see right in the middle, it looks like a little bird's nest, hence its name. And I think that this might be the way I'm going to go. I just think that they have a very unique look to them. Okay, this also says it's a bird's nest fern, but it looks like it has more of an upright growth. It has the little space in the middle too. So I think I might go with the upright version because of where I'm placing it in my house. This is also an interesting plant, medium to highlight Swiss cheese vine. And it says it trails from 3 to 8 feet. Look at the leaves here. It does indeed look like Swiss cheese. That's very interesting looking. This is called a Terrace silver ribbon, which I found out is part of the fern family, and I thought it was such a pretty plant. All right, so I am back and I've got my 2 plants potted. So I wanted to show you guys first, I got this Kalanchoe, which here is what it looks like. I've got it in a dark pot here, and I actually got it on sale. It was $4 off, or I'm sorry, it was $4 total. And I'm assuming that it was on sale because it has stopped flowering. These are flowering plants, and this one was marked white, so I think it has white flowers, or I'm hoping it has white flowers. It doesn't really matter though. I would like them all anyway. But it looked like a really healthy plant to me, so I thought $4 was a good deal. Now I know that from my class that I took that these prefer bright light, bright indirect light. And so I will make sure to place it in the appropriate setting, and then that it should be dry in between watering, which I found out when taking that class that most of your indoor plants, you are going to want them to, or let them dry out before you water, and place your finger in the soil a bit to make sure that that is dry. There are exceptions, of course, and one or a couple of exceptions are African violets, because if you buy the African violet pot, then that kind of sits in water, and then the pot absorbs the water as needed, and then ferns as well. So I think those are two exceptions, but for the most part, from my understanding, is that you really want your plants to dry out before you water them. Not that you should leave them dry for an extended period of time, of course, but just to make sure that they do have the opportunity to dry out. So I got this plant here, and then I did end up getting the bird's nest fern and the upright version. So I think that looks so pretty, this pretty green leaf against this dark pot here. And I got that. I've looked at them before and been interested in them. I thought that they looked really neat, and I liked the little bird nest in the middle that I showed you guys. But once I took my class, I found out that this is one of the easiest ferns to take care of. And so that sold me on it even more, because I'm not looking for particularly difficult fern to take care of. I have tried indoor ferns in the past, and I haven't had the best of luck personally. I've had good luck with outdoor ferns and pots, but just not my indoor ferns. So I thought the bird's nest was the way to go for me. So that is a medium light uh, plant, and evidently it is pretty easy to take care of. Okay, so I did mention that I took a class, and I wanted to share some of the information that I did learn from it. And this was a basic class, so just basic houseplants. I would say that most of my experience has been more in outdoor planting, and I do have plants indoors, but it's just not as extensive as my outdoor planting. I've got some orchids and some plants here and there, but I thought it would be a good idea to start from the basics and then kind of work my way from there. So the first thing that I thought was interesting, I don't know if everyone knows, I did not know this, but to determine the lighting in your space when you're trying to pick out a plant indoors, you can hold up a white sheet of paper and then hold your hand about 8 inches away from it. If you see your hand shadow clearly defined on that paper, then that is more of a highlight type of environment. And you'll want to check that through the day to see if that's consistent or to see what the majority is. If you see a shadow and it's kind of blurry, so you can see a shadow, but it's kind of blurry and not as clearly defined, then that would be more of a medium light. And then if you don't see that shadow, or if it's very, very slim, then that would be more of a lower light type of setting. So you can use that and check it throughout the day to help determine the space that you are wanting to put a plant in. I mean, the first thing to determine, of course, is your lighting, so that you're picking the appropriate plant for that space. Another thing that I wanted to mention, and this is something that I actually currently do, so it was interesting to hear them mention it in the class, is leaving your plants in the plastic container that you buy them in. Now, you certainly don't have to do this, and you can replant it and put it in a pot, but for your decorative pots, particularly that don't have a drain hole, you will want to make sure that you are not leaving a plant to just sit in water. And the best way, or one of the ways to do that, is to actually leave them in a plastic container. Now, if your plant needs to be repotted, then you can go ahead, obviously, and do that. But you might want to consider looking at planting it in a bigger plastic container and then putting it in the pot itself. It certainly, from my experience, makes it easier to water and to maintain. And when I want to change out pots, or if I'm looking to change a different space, maybe it's not doing well in a certain spot, then it's very easy for me to interchange the plants if they are just in those plastic pots. So I have found that that works best for me and how I like to set up my indoor gardening. And that was one thing that they did mention in that class that I thought was interesting, and I wanted to make sure to share that in case that was something you might want to try as well. Another thing that they mentioned was, as far as the watering, they said, to not depend so much on a calendar to water, but really you're going to want to check that soil. So you're going to want to put your finger in the soil about a couple of inches, and if it comes out dry, then it's probably time to water. But if it's damp, then you may want to sit tight until it is dry. Now, they did mention that the exception to this would be ferns, that they like a little more water. And so that might be the exception to the rule. And if you do have ferns, you might want to check out what kind you have and see what the recommendation is for those watering needs. One thing they also mentioned when repotting your plant is that you generally don't want to go a lot bigger than the pot that it came in. So if you are looking to replant, let's say they gave the example as if you had a 6-inch pot and you needed to replant, maybe go to an 8-inch, but you don't want to go to a very large space that's a lot bigger than the pot that your plant comes in. And they also mentioned that when you are repotting, to make sure that that root ball is at the top of your pot. So you don't want to bury it under. You want to make sure to build it up right from the bottom of the pot so that the root ball is flush or close to the top of your pot that you're planting in. They did mention too that if you are looking for a more colorful plant or a flowering plant, you're usually going to be looking more in the high light type of plants where those plants need the higher light or have higher light needs. So that is something to keep into consideration when you are indoor plant shopping, is that generally those types of plants are going to want that brighter light in your home. So just bear that in mind, that again, that you're choosing the appropriate plant for your space. I know that in the past, when you go to nurseries, you can get caught up in how pretty everything is and you just want to kind of get what speaks to you. But I have a hard time sometimes bearing in mind that I also need to get what is appropriate for my space. And that can be a hard thing to keep in mind when I am overwhelmed by all those beautiful plants and flowers. So that is something that they mentioned as well. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope that you enjoyed the indoor plant shopping as much as I did and looking at some of the different options that there are out there. And I hope that in my class that what I learned, I was able to pass on some of that information to you guys and help you guys as well. Thank you so much again. Please make sure to like and subscribe. And until next time, bye and happy gardening.